A brand's overall performance and final conversions depends on the unique proposition integrating data at each intersection of the user engagement and behavior. Let's get deeper into this. We have invited a panel of experts to discuss performance marketing, the intersection of marketing technologies and data science. I would like to invite Paras Mehta, Business Head, Matterkind, to moderate this discussion. Over to you, Mr. Mehta.
Hello everyone, I'm Paras Mehta. I hope the viewers are doing well. I also hope that many of us are done with our second vaccine dose, and remainder of us will be done before this year ends. It's unfortunate and really sad that a deadly virus had to hit the entire world and take away lives. The loss is irreplaceable. On the other side, it's commendable to see the pace at which scientists across the globe could come up with a vaccine that could safeguard our lives to a great extent. Well, I don't understand anything about how these vaccines are made or what kind of chemical components go into it. But what really caught my attention due to my interest in that area is the pace at which many countries in the world, including India, came up with an innovative and interesting way to connect the vaccination dosages to a simple yet effective online platform that allows us to know many things, such as when are we eligible for our first dose, when is our second dose due, where can we get our dosages or a location of our choice, slot booking timings, how many people from the different parts of India have already taken the jab by age, gender, and many such cuts, right? And that's a meaningful use of technology for us. Fast-paced, agile, informative, if designed well. This brings us to the topic of today's discussion, performance marketing, the intersection of marketing technology and data science. Gone are the days when we used to only look at impressions, clicks, website visits, eCPM, and eCPC. Seldom have we looked at performance marketing as only affiliate spends. Search does become an important component of performance marketing, but with the introduction of new platforms and technologies, performance marketing today requires much more rigor than ever before. Display, video, audio, search, programmatic, email, SMS, influencers, dynamic creatives, attribution modeling, and many such things today are an inseparable component of our lives to deliver the best user experience that is smooth and non-intrusive and also delivers results that's as close to the business objective as possible. Basis TRI data, we are close to about 73 million internet users in India. So with so many users and multiple touch points and extremely low attention span, how do you deliver performance with the use of MarTech and data science? To discuss this topic in detail, we have Abhishek Gupta, Senior Vice President Growth, D2C Business, Mamaearth, Arun Jayraman, Head of Marketing, Big Basket, Navin Madhavan, VP and GM, Growth and Marketing Platforms, InMobi, Prathamesh Dembla, Head of Growth at Licious, Samriddh Dasgupta, Vice President Marketing and New Brands at Bombay Shaving. Let me start by asking my first question to Navin. Navin, you work with many agencies and marketers in the Indian market and globally as well. What are some of your experiences or expectations from companies such as yours to deliver performance? And what role does audience cohorts play for you in delivering performance?
Thanks, Paras, for setting up the context so beautifully for what I'm sure is going to be an exciting time. Data-driven performance marketing is definitely no easy beast to tackle, right? So I think to your question, Paras, I definitely have to start off by saying that expectations from clients are always unreal when it comes to marketing platforms and the outcomes that are expected from us. I think broadly speaking, every marketer today looks at digital to be an ROI engine. And I would argue rightly so, because it's the most measurable channel as well that's available amongst all the opportunities that's present with marketing heads. You've already called out that, gone are the days when it's simple impression or click. I would say that we've even gone beyond the world where it's just a cost per install or a cost per lead. Today, the kind of metrics that we are asked to chase go right to a cost per first ride. If it's a taxi app, a first transaction, if it's an e-commerce app, a cost per subscription after a 30-day free trial, if it's an OTT app, on the in-app front, to even more complicated metrics, including footfall measurements, post and ad exposure, to ensure that the online to offline gap has been bridged. In addition, we also have verticals where there are leads provided whose authenticity is measured, post calls and verification of intent actually being confirmed. So I would say that the ecosystem has definitely taken the challenge head on to say that we will deliver measurable outcomes to any advertiser in any category. I think there have been a few factors that are very key to the evolution. One, and the most important one, is that there's been a lot of innovation and advancement in measurement technology and platforms, which have helped us all as marketers and as an ecosystem to provide this attribution and outcomes in a truly privacy compliant fashion. Second, as I already said, these platforms have now become truly independent, and they've been continuing to grow and finding ways in ensuring that they're providing all of these outcomes to advertisers. It could be across like an AppsLayer or branch in the case of App Install, or a ComScore which actually speaks about the audience reach, or a Nielsen bar which speaks about like an audience efficiency. And I think the last one, which I do have to add as an independent marketing platform, is that walled gardens themselves have been measured in terms of the information and data that's being provided, as a result of which marketers have to innovate and be very careful in terms of measuring the right outcomes across all channels. Coming to the second part of the question that you threw at me about the importance of audience cohorts. I think as a platform which delivers ads for advertisers and working with publishers across many categories, audience cohorts are a very important one for us because it makes it very effective in reducing the learning window for us as a platform to actually deliver results and outcomes to any clients we work with. Over a period of time, any such platform improves our understanding of the user by helping measure the engagements and looking at the interactions across many different touch points that we have. I think as a result, what happens is we try and ensure that personalization is very high to ensure that the outcomes are very easy and possible to achieve for brands through a platform like us. Audience cohorts are really the common factor through which we can marry performance and creatives in the right fashion to ensure that you're not just delivering one creative and one message to all the users, but you're delivering it in a very personalized way. While I say all of this, I also want to add the fact that audiences are always looked at as cohorts. And this means that we try and understand, aggregate behavioral patterns and insights about users, and not trying to identify individuals, because we all understand that the world is moving in a very privacy first fashion, and we have to be sure that none of this is done in a PII first fashion. So I think that is a brief nutshell on both elements of what is really the performance outcomes that marketers look at and how audiences can help get the right outcomes that we as platforms can enable for them.
Thank you, Navin. You mentioned a few important points. For good or for the betterment, let me put it that way, I think it's a good thing that we've really moved away from just a simple click and maybe at best placing a pixel on the landing page and measuring the conversions, right? So that reminds me, I'm just taking a few steps back, right? When it comes to performance, by default, search becomes an important factor, right? I'd like to invite Abhishek, right? Abhishek, I have a question in mind. How crucial is search for performance marketing, right? And what is the importance of SEO and SEM when we talk about search in the same breath?
Got it. Thanks, Paras. I think search plays a really important role. I think, especially for a brand like us or a niche brand, search is a bread and butter in the whole performance marketing strategies. I still remember when we were launching an initial product or when we launching a new brand, we first see, okay, whether we have the brand search in the market or not, how much people are actually searching for that particular problem or a particular solution. Suppose we have launched a vitamin C serum. how are they actually a search volume or not in the market, or in the Indian market, how the US markets are performing. So to initiate a product, launching a product, launching a brand, research really helps us to actually first identify the market or do the initial market research. And the company, a startup like us, when an initial phase, when we don't have much money and you can't really spend on talking to the big companies for the consulting and everything, you use the search data. And if they are saying that people are searching for the product, you can go and you can hit the right market. So in that way, I think search is the right way to actually set the product market fit. And when we launch the product, what we generally do is we first target the consumer via search, because we know, suppose we had launched an anti-dandruff oil or a hair fall oil, onion oil. What we do is we know that let's bring the intentful customers who are there in the market. Let's see whether they are converting or not. And if they are not converting, let's ask them what's the problem they are facing, whether the product is not right, whether the communication is not right, what actually the problem with the whole intent is. And after clearing the old funnels and making sure that, okay, now we are at the right stage, let's start with the mass strategy of communicating the other customer this message. So search plays a key role to build your funnel, identifying the right matrices, identify the right communication for the right set. And when you are scaling, when you start scaling to maybe a platform like YouTube, Facebook, or maybe a TV ad, search also plays a second role. That when you generally see an ad, you search on Google search, okay, let me check ki karta kya hai product. I've heard a lot about Mamaearth, but what actually about onion oil, what onion provides. So people do a lot of Google search when they see, and it's a classical conversion funnel path for us. When they see an ad on YouTube or Facebook, they generally search. When they are on our offline stores, they search, okay, Mamaearth dekha hai, aaj kya karta hai. So this do a lot of search. And at that point of time, you need to make sure you are present over there, because that will increase your ad recall and bring that consumer into consumer funnel. So that's the second part. Coming on to the SEO part. Since now we are in the into market for around 3 to 4 years. Now, if we start spending on top of the funnel from Google and Facebook, and again spending on Google search to bring the customer to a funnel, it adds up in the cost 2 times. And each and every startup or each and every company wants to be profitable at one point or another, or maybe increase the profitability. So you want to make sure that when the customer search, you are on the top organic results. So SEO plays a key role. But I think one of the key mistakes each and every company, or maybe majority of company in the market, is they think for SEO strategy after 3-4 years down the line, when the whole market is matured, when they are exhausting the search and the PM is going beyond their control. But I think what we have learned that SEO need to start from at the initial phase. So we started at the initial phase. Currently, we are expanding the ever SEO strategy more onto the non-brand and to the other keywords. So that's how the things need to be done. Initial phase, you need to make sure that you are doing your on-page SEO, you are doing your technical part right, so that you get the initial chunk in a right way. You make your SEO strategy, blog strategy, everything in the initial phase. So that's how the whole SEO part will work, because eventually after 4 or 5 years, you will not be doing the SEM targeting to a large extent. You will be relying on SEO, and those type of SEO customers will be highly in line towards the brand, because because each and every person knows that the paid ads, the type of consumer we get from paid ads as compared to an organic results is very, very high. So the type of brand resonance as well as the confidence increases via an SEO. So you need to make sure that you need to build that funnel from an initial stage. And after maybe a couple of years, when you started reaping the results from the SEO, you can slowly decrease your SEM budgets and rely more on the SEO search.
Excellent. I think that's interesting and most important thing to hear, right? Few years down the line in your business, you want to be more precise, and what better way to have learnings from SEO, right, which then can be smartly deployed on SEM. And while you were talking about SEO and SEM, I saw Prathamesh smiling. I think he's got some inputs there as well. So we'll move to Prathamesh now. But Prathamesh, I'm gonna first start with asking a question, and then maybe if you have your inputs on search, maybe you can add on to that. You know, for the categories such as yours that you represent in the market today, right? While we speak about search, I think video has, like even Abhishek mentioned, yeah, YouTube or TV plays a crucial role. So what's the role of video as per you, as far as the performance marketing is concerned? Especially when most cases, we have an option to skip the ad, right? I don't know how, with short attention span, as well as the option to skip the ad, do video ads really work? And if yes, what's your take on that?
So the first one, I smiled when Abhishek said, as a lot of companies start working on SEO after 3-4 years, and it hit me. Either chupa aaya pe. So I completely agree. It's a very slow burner. It takes a lot of time. So for the marketeers who are hearing out, do invest in SEO. Abhishek is very right. The quality of customers is good, and a brand equity that you build. A lot of times, a lot of companies don't measure that. It's the authority that you get. So for example, tomorrow, if I'm searching for any shaving products or how should I shave, a Bombay shaving company comes at the top in SEO, authority build ho jata hai wahan pe. So in a similar way, for us in a category like us, when I say कि अगर कोई चिकन बिरयानी का रेसिपी ढूंढ रहा है, चिकन तंदूरी को हाउ टू कुक इन 5 मिनट्स अगर कोई पूछता है, and if Licious का वहां पे ऊपर सर्च आता है, then I'm building that authority. And as for example, all of the companies that we are the leaders in our category. So it's very important that you build that authority. So that's why I was smiling when he said, yes, SEO is critical for any business. So I will leave it at search. So for example, at search, as category leaders, when we were talking, most of us are here category leaders. So we should definitely look at building that authority as a brand leader so that we are present out there. It brings that authenticity to the brand as well. Now coming to the second part, when you spoke about whether video is important or not. So I've been analyzing data, looking at Google. When you look at Google, you get this data bases your placements on text search, on display, on video. And if you see, search is a lot intent based. So for example, when we launched the brand campaign last time, I think you guys would have seen Anil Kapoor promoting Licious on TV. You see a brand search is spiking, where Abhishek was talking, your search spike, obviously it spikes. So to change searches, it either requires a lockdown or you need to do a brand campaign such that the search spike, because it's very much intent based. That's pull based marketing. A push based marketing is where, for example, I have seen through images or through video. So when I looked at this actual numbers, for example, search se mujhe kitni acquisition aani text se, display se, video se. This search or text has remained slowly it has been growing. So when you're looking for inorganic growth, trust me, video is the future. Your inventory all around is being converted to video for app-based campaigns, especially. You see a lot of ads, for example, and what it actually helps, like we actually did an analysis, for example, certain cohorts of users. I send an SMS that costs us close to 10 to 12 paise per SMS. Per view, you can get it at a similar rate. What is better, एक SMS जो customer के promotion inbox में रहेगा, या फिर उसने 6 सेकंड तो ad देख लिया मेरी, I'm able to convey some story there. Video helps you to convey that story. So when you're looking at that video, it's actually today one of our biggest contributors in performance acquisitions today, video entirely. Obviously, there are certain cuts that you need to identify, whether it has to be a 10-second or 15-second or a 30-second cut. What is the storytelling that you're using? Third, I would say, be it reactivation, be it news and acquisition, all across. Video is actually coming out as a game changer. We have seen our categories P&L changing drastically because of one film or two films out there. So any marketer out there, do invest in videos. Second thing I'll say, video, it has actually continued surprising us. A lot of times we thought this video will be the best performing. Certain animated video might not be the best performing because of the production quality. Production quality, trust me, doesn't matter. If you have the story, if you have the product benefit, चाहे आप मोबाइल पे शूट करो या फिर एक HD कैमरा, 2 कैमरा शूट, you get production. Eventually the story है, concept सही है, it will click. The performance में video, any marketer, just go ahead. Don't think about the production quality. Just experiment.
Excellent. So the bottom line, what you're suggesting is video is important.
It's critical. I can't imagine how today any marketer can survive without video. मतलब मैं imagine भी नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ ये चीज. And especially app-based marketers, I can definitely say.
I can understand. Well, honestly, Prathamesh, I've not seen any ad, at least not on YouTube, because I've also taken YouTube Premium subscription just to ensure that my child doesn't keep watching something which is not something intended for kids to watch. So anyways, You mentioned about Anil Kapoor, and we have somebody in the house who's recently signed up R. Ashwin for their as their brand ambassador, Samriddh. Congratulations on that. That's impressive. I've been seeing your ad on TV multiple times. It's quite impressive every time I see it. Just on the fun side, right? Just looking at R. Ashwin, I thought, let me just put a mustache like this. Otherwise, I've never tried this ever before. So thank you for that. Okay, on a more serious note, when we talk about influencers, we talk about where we can catch them, or how we can make best use of, when we have an important figure as part of our promotional portfolio, right? So what's your take on social channels? Do they really work? Does influencer marketing, right? Because when we talk about social influencer, somewhere part of that, does influencer marketing have any role to play in performance marketing?
Hey, thanks. All marketing is performance marketing, man. There is no marketing if it's not linked to performance, right? See, the fact of the matter is it's a noisy world. It's a world where there's an endless scroll. It's a world where there's very little that you can do to either disrupt viewership or make people deliberate on things, right? There's a certain lack of patience in general. I think we have all landed at a situation where we just want to move on to the next best thing very, very quickly. Influencers help break the monotony of that endless scroll in some form, and that's the way we look at it. Thanks for bringing up Ashwin. I think it led to two things, and I'm going to try and be as specific as I can be for the betterment of anyone who's watching. One, we had a weak market in South India, and we were very clear that we wanted to focus on that. So when you look at influencers, you have to figure out who do you want to influence, and what do you want to influence. We wanted to influence a territory, and we wanted to influence a very specific cohort. We wanted to influence men who were between the age groups of 30 to 45. We wanted to influence men who were sitting in South India. Our studies have shown that people in South are shaving far more than people in North. And we wanted to capture that market really, really well. We also wanted to capture an international market. We knew that Ashwin was going to play, a series of tests and one-dayers across the global audiences. So we were very clear about where we wanted to go. I think before we start to establish whether influencer marketing or celebrity-driven marketing works or not, as marketers, we need to be clear about what we want them to solve for us. It's not a one-size-fits-all, unfortunately. There are very specific regional capabilities that influencers bring to the table or celebrities bring to the table. The influence on very specific cohorts and categories is what they can have. So in a nutshell, they work, but you have to know the problem that you want to solve for. For us, the acquisition costs go down, the brand recall goes up, the search trends are phenomenal. We are able to get richness of audience and remarket to them. The cohorts that both Navin, Abhishek, and Prathamesh have spoken about, where search becomes number one that you start solving for. We see that search from Ashwin's video and search related to Ashwin spikes lead to far higher conversion rates, far higher average order value, far higher glance views on Amazon and Flipkart and Nykaa and Myntra, for example, right? That automatically reduces CAC, it increases conversion rates. It just makes sense for us to do that, right? The challenge is, how do you make sure that you do it on repeat mode? The challenge is that when you do this, there's a certain degree of delta that you always need to cross with the next influencer campaign and the next brand campaign and the next celebrity campaign, right? So the deltas are set by us as marketeers. And then we get into that constant loop of trying to solve for it, which is the only problem, the way I look at it, right? Because you can't always keep recreating that magic. Is our next one going to be better than what we have done with Ashwin? I hope so, for my sake and for everyone's sake. But is there a guarantee to it? Don't know, can't say, right? So there's a reality check to that part also. But yeah, in a nutshell, it works. You just need to know what problem you're trying to solve for. Excellent. I think for me, it has worked. I've started shaving a little too often as opposed to being at home and not shaving for a longer period. I shave every day, so yeah. Oh, wow. Excellent. You're going to walk the talk, man. You're going to walk the talk. Yeah, I'm going to try and at least shave twice a week now. Now that people have started going back to office, I'm going to try and be a little more. If you haven't used a straight razor, get one. It's on me, and try using that. It's a game changer, bro.
Is it? Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
stand by today. Once we
Done.
have this. Excellent. Super. Thanks for that tip, Samriddh. So I think the gist of what we hear till now is that everything that we do, whether we do search, video, social, influencer, celebrity marketing, whatever kind of marketing, it's going to generate a pots of data, right? And then you just need to kind of try and figure out what to do with that and so on and so forth. But here we have Arun, right, who probably has a different type of challenge that he possibly is facing. So Arun, for you, right, the question is, most digital natives know about Big Basket, right? You just, and especially, it's unfortunate what we've gone through in past 1.5 years, but we've been ordering online pretty often nowadays, right? So to give some context, right, even my parents and my grandparents probably know, okay, ye sabji khatam ho gayi, let's order from Big Basket or from BB Daily and so on, right? So it's that easy to have a general communication, right? So once a user is on the app, what role does website or app analytics play in closing the loop on various factors, such as something as simple as media optimization to first transaction, retention, repeat purchase, so on and so forth, right? And just to add on to that, the second part of the question is keeping the analytics aside, which is part of our day-to-day life. How important is the role of data science in getting the best possible business outcome? What's your take on that?
Hey, thanks, Paras. Actually, before I start, the recall that you have about Big Basket is sabji and grocery, but all honesty, we're trying to compete with Prathamesh, with Licious, and we have a beauty category and all that, right? So I think that's a stereotype we want to break as well. And also, might be possibly the only sort of member here who's not completely into core performance marketing. So I'll just probably provide an overall view on how we look at data and how analytics sort of helps us make decisions, right? See, one is on in terms of measurement and media optimization. What we've done, I think, at least what we've evolved to an extent is, we use that very frequently, right? All the decisions we make on what campaigns to take, which channels to optimize on, how much budgets to park in each channel, what is the ROI for each channel, not only from a top of the funnel view, but also from a customer behavior point of view, right? So it's okay that you acquire customers, and over time you spend enough money, you might get a decent chunk of users trying your platform. But I think the end result is how do you manage their LTVs, right? So because in business that we are in, our margins are thin, right? And for us, one of the key factors is how do we make sure that a category mix changes over time, right? Like how you said, it's sabji, but eventually how do I make you or your mom make to make your mom buy, say, beauty or other categories, right? So I think that's something that is very critical for us, and retention again plays a key aspect, right? So so just to cut a long story short, I think for us data is very critical. We measure things like intent for a user based on multiple factors. Top of the funnel factors could be time spent on the app, engagement, all the regular default factors that all companies measure. But outside that, we also look at propensity to purchase. So we sort of derive metrics with the help of our data science team to figure out who is more likely to buy, right? And then we park more budgets to those cohort of users. So these are the things that we do just to make sure that our budgets are used more effectively at Big Basket. So I think that's how I'll put it. Maybe not from a from a very programmatic performance point of view, but more from a marketing point of view.
Got it. Thanks, Arun.
I think just to add to that, that data where I think Arun is talking about, he has multiple categories, and I can very well relate. We also try to build it. So a lot of data will actually tell you the quality of customers coming from different sources, different type of category users, what they are doing, what's their behavior on the app, what are they looking for. I think if somebody just digs deep into that, your whole media mix actually changes. Like for a region, you can actually go that you can speak and you can say you can sell a particular category one here, particular region category two. Your whole media mix, your whole brand story actually can change there. It's just looking at the right data out there.
Yeah, just to add to Prathamesh, for example, if you take beauty as a category, right, or personal care, right? So the it sits very well with the social channels, right? Instagram is very visual in nature. right? You can create some good content, like Prathamesh was mentioning, brand videos sort of play a very key factor, right? Your cost per acquisition through videos on certain categories is, much better compared to, just your pure play static ads, right? So I think the right mix is something that we also derive, both from a media mix as well as from a creative mix is something that we derive through the data that we get from our, analytics team.
Yeah, so I think you both have made a very important point, and that goes for almost everybody who's listening to us. Please invest in data science team. Just don't rely on something that's easily available. That's just say plain simple reporting, right? Anybody can do it. It's important to get into the details and depth of which channel at what point, how, blah blah, 10 other things, right? So please go ahead and do that.
What's readily available is bad data, okay? What's readily available is dirty data. What's not readily available is cleaning of that data, which I think Arun and team do really well. As marketers, that's actually one of the bigger challenges that you face, where to draw a line between all the deluge of data that hits you and the complexity of how dirty that data is, right? And you need to start cleaning it up. And I think that's what Arun and Prathamesh, because both of you have very strong sort of app-driven ecosystems that you work with, right? So very, very complicated to clean that up and make sure that it works. So thanks for bringing this point up there.
Yeah, just to quickly add, honestly, we don't only bank on our attribution platforms. We also have we built a whole open source model to capture data in-house, right? So on Redshift and AWS, so all that. So I think we sort of marry this before we, take decisions. So just wanted to put that out there.
Super. I love this conversation, right? When everybody comes together and has the same view, it's important for everyone to know that, loud and clear, please do the right thing.
So you know what we are troubled with.
And when we go to our data analytics team for
I have that problem many times when I go back to my data analytics team and say, hey, something 1, 2, 3, 4, and they say, you're confusing with 2 different problems. You probably let's identify the problem and then see what kind of answers, right? So it's complex, it's difficult. And while we talk about data science and analytics, right? Abhishek, I'd like to have your view on a very specific question about attribution, right? I read somewhere that, you have many offline channels, and of course you have your online channels through which products can be purchased, right? So in a market such as ours, right, there are many categories, many products which are available online, or even offline as well, right? And the frequency at which each of these products can be bought or should be bought, and so on and so forth, right? In such situation, right, when should one consider having their own D2C website, right? Because the general perception is that, and no offense to all my marketing friends here, right? The general perception is that you park more budget on TV, and if you do that right, the cost of acquisition is less. Right. I don't deny the fact that it's less, but then still, we have this whole trend of platforms coming out with their D2C websites. So what's a good time to have that in place?
Sure. So I think to understand when to have a D2C website, we need to first understand why one needs a D2C channel or a D2C website in place. So first of all, I would like to, it varies from category to category, especially in a personal care category. People take time for a decision making. It is not an impulse buying category. Maybe you are buying a ice cream or a chocolate. It's a sort of impulse buying. You go to a shop, you think, okay, Dairy Milk is the right matrix, or a Barbun is a right product for you. You buy that product. But a personal care, you first analyze, okay, I have some problem, maybe hair fall, maybe acne, or maybe I need a body lotion for winters. Then you search for a body lotion, or you maybe are loyal to one of the brand, maybe Nivea or maybe Vaseline into the market. You buy that product. But you generally search online, okay, what sort of product you need, and you generally identify, okay, this is the right product for me, or this can solve my problem. But also evaluating this whole funnel, the current world, especially the world of millennial and Gen Z, consumer don't only buy when they see a benefit from a product or or from a price point of view, but they also evaluate from a point of view of why they are buying a particular brand, or what purpose the brand is there for, and what's the story behind it. So they want to know that, they want to stand with that, and that's how the whole purchase cycle, and that's how the whole confidence in building the whole purchasing and buying behavior. To make sure that you communicate this message and you communicate the right communication of the brand as well as the whole funnel to the consumer, you need to have a D2C website or a D2C channel. At day one, you might be doing some research on maybe this communication is X communication is working well for me, maybe Y communication is working well for me. By maybe listing a product on Amazon, Nike, or maybe a big basket, first of all, doing such experiments or doing such maybe testing requires a lot of time as well as cost as well, because you can't really buy banners on a daily basis or a regular basis. So you need to make sure that you are identifying that communication on from your D2C channel. And when you have identified that effectiveness of the D2C channel and your D2C funnel, then you started expanding onto the other channels. And that's what we have done. We have first identified our D2C channel, why we stand for, and I'm not shy away telling that we have changed a lot in terms of communication. So initially we were pitching more from a baby as a parent point of view. Now we are a more personal care brand. And we have learned this from our consumer, talking to the consumer and what they actually want, what problem we want to solve. And these 2C brands helps you, because we know that where the consumers are dropping, whether they are skipping the ads, which I think you rightly mentioned and the Prathamesh rightly answered. So skipping the ads, maybe into the coming to the website, adding to the cart, but not purchasing. So you are making sure that you are building the whole funnel. After a particular point of time, when you are scaling and you think that, okay, now I am confident enough that my whole people have confidence in the brand. Now they are able to repurchase and everything. You need to make sure that you are present at the right point and the place where they're more comfortable in buying. Maybe in an offline store nearby to their house. Maybe Swiggy will deliver in around Swiggy and Grofers will deliver in around 15 minutes in Delhi NCR and other places as well. Amazon, Nike, etc. So you need to be there. If from day one, if I'm launching from all these channels, there might be a case that I lost in all these products and I'm not able to communicate my message. They know that, okay, there is one onion shampoo, there is one Upton face wash, but what problem actually the brand is solving and why the brand stands for, I'm not able to communicate that. To make sure that I'm communicating that message, one needs a D2C brand. So my answer will be, from day one, one need to have a D2C brand, and one should make sure that you are testing and trying those funnels. Maybe for other people who are established in the market, they might not, they are running this as a revenue channel. But for Mamaearth, it's more for creating a brand awareness, creating that brand proposition in the eyes of the customers. So that's how the whole funnel and the whole system is built at Mamaearth.
Excellent. I think you answered it right. I'm just keeping a check on the time. We have about 10 odd minutes to go. And I have too many questions for all of us here, right? So I'm going to quickly move to Samriddh. Samriddh, you also have many offline channels where you sell, and then of course you have your online channel where people can come and purchase. So, while you're having your communication, you have a mix of offline communications, online communications, push notifications, something else, all of that put together, right? How do you address the challenge of attribution, right? I think part of it.
Media attribution or performance attribution?
Performance attribution.
Right. I think a couple of things, right? One, the moment you start to look at cross-channel attribution, there is a certain degree of data blindness, and one needs to be comfortable with it. There is no right answer to saying that, we have it solved. I don't think most of us as marketers do have it solved. So let's first put that on the table, right? It's good to address it by saying that we don't really have a full-fledged answer for this. But there are 2 or 3 ways of doing it, which is what we do, right? I think the product plays a very important role. So if there is a communication on the product where people can scan a QR code, come onto the website to learn more, get onto our YouTube channel, or just reach the website to maybe register for something new, that gives us a certain degree of cross-channel attribution, where someone is picking up a product from the shelf and we are being able to bring them to a digital destination. That's number one. The destination in this case still remains our D2C front. It's not like I'm going to take someone to Amazon or a Flipkart at this moment, right? Because I want that data richness back into the system. There is only so much that one does from performance marketing to push people from a digital front to an offline store, because that's where you start to lose the data richness and visibility of things, right? And because we are not an app, I think the D2C ecosystem does great disservice to itself by not being able to have that attribution, which is a rather unfortunate thing, right? So two things. One, try and see if there is a crosswalk that can happen from an offline to online, which is a little bit more in your control. And in this case, offline is the product piece that we have, right? So that's number one. The second thing that can be done, which is where you have very strong sort of ring-fenced campaigns that are run for your offline presence, but it's run digitally, right? So that's where you have the attribution, where you've run a very strong ring-fenced campaign to drive people to your stores. Let's say during Durga Puja, in Calcutta, we know that there are certain stores where our gift boxes are available, right? And these are premium stores, premium locations. There we will ring fence, we will geo-target, and we'll make sure that people around that neighborhood know that we have these products available. So it depends on the kind of campaign attribution that you need. If it's about driving footfall to a store because you believe that the kits will sell better or the products will sell better because it's a higher order value and it's an event-based thing, definitely should be done. Otherwise, the products themselves need to drive people from an offline to an online environment, which is the reverse attribution piece, which is unfortunately missing in most cases, right? I mean, unless you have your own app and people go and scan it and transact with it, which is what a lot of fashion brands do. Unfortunately, D2C is not able to do that.
Right. Thanks, Samriddh. I think I'll just add one bit to it. So for who have their own offline stores, right? Google marketing, GMB, the listing that you get on search, right? GMB listing. I think that also plays a crucial role in at least adding some other elements to how do you map online to offline and so on and so forth.
Correct. In an EBO environment, 100%, but in an MBO environment, it doesn't work, unfortunately. That's the problem.
Correct. Moving to Prathamesh. Prathamesh, the company that you represent is sort of getting into the area where it can be called a unicorn in the consumable space, right? This means that there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulder, not to just shape the category, but also to define success metrics. How do folks at Licious do that? How do you guys do it?
I think what we have realized here, the category that we operate is the branded meat category, a clean, hygienic meat category. So I won't call it an online category, offline category. It's that. So I think you're very right. There's a huge responsibility where we are actually talking about आज आटा आपके घर पे आशीर्वाद आटा आता है, चावल कोहिनूर दावत बासमती राइस आता है, मीट में ऐसा कोई नहीं बोलता है. So we are actually educating the consumer, boss, this is the right meat that you need to have. This is the right cut you need to have. So that responsibility is huge. And we don't look at it as a zero-sum game. Like all of us together, our competitors, we take them together. But if there are good learnings, yes, we should look at it. Now, one thing, when we look at success metrics for us, then it actually boils down to consumer metrics rather than obviously the internal revenue metrics, which we actually chase. But we're very anal to consumer metrics. So consumer facing metrics, for example, if I were to say the right product rating for each and every product that we are of close to 200 SKUs that we have, the right delivery rating for each and every delivery that the consumer gets. For orders, how many perfect orders actually we are giving? Whenever we are doing new product launches, how is the uptake that is happening out there? How are users actually using the cross category metrics? For example, if you're ordering from us, whether you're ordering from multiple categories, like there are multiple touch points. In a breakfast, you can have an egg or a spread. In lunch, you can have chicken. There is kebab for parties that we have. So we understand those touch points. And for us, the success metrics are actually reaching the consumer on all those touch points. Now, one more success metric that we don't have a metric per se, but a lot of times, like for example, Arun might say we operate a farm to fork model. For us, it's actually, I'll actually say it's a farm to stomach model. कि उसका जो डिश भी बन रहा है, we want it to be perfect. क्योंकि अगर डिश अच्छा नहीं बना तो गाली हमको ही पड़ता है, अरे डिशेस का चिकन अच्छा नहीं था. So we actually want to own the entire funnel out there. So those are our success metrics that, like when you have a chicken biryani on a Friday night at a party or kebabs, you should feel proud. You should brag. Ye Licious ke kebab hain, and people should ask you. So over and above the success metrics तो सबको पता है यहाँ पे जो भी सुनने आएंगे भी कि हाँ ये revenue है, ये retention है, acquisition है, इसका LTV है, वो तो सबको पता है. I think focusing on the consumer metrics is where the real growth actually comes in, and that's what our founders have, like Abhay and Vivek, have been focusing on, and that has been my learning curve. मैं जब नया Licious में आया था तो मैं भी सब jazzy words, CAC, LTV, retention, D7 retention, ये सब बोलता था, and there was a sort of learning that I got. We focus on the consumer first, बाकी सब चीजें will fall in place.
Right. So consumer metric is the key. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just building onto that, right? And Navin, probably I'll come to you because you probably will have a little more knowledge on that on the tech side as well, right? When we define consumer, when we define, let me not call it as consumer, but users, right? There are talks of third-party cookies going away, and that having impact on achieving performance for our marketing campaigns and so on and so forth, right? What's your take on that?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question that we're all sitting with, right? And I'm sure it's all the more important for the two D2C brand owners and marketers that are on this panel, who largely champion their own website as a destination for purchase and interaction with users. I have a lot of interesting points, but the good news or bad news is that it is not just the cookies that are going away. For people who track the changes in the Apple ecosystem, device identifiers, including IDFA, which have helped us marry user data into a single profile, is also being deprecated. A lot of you as users have been getting pop-ups on, do you want to allow apps to track you across the ecosystem, right? So that's the kind of messaging that's going out to the users. But I think what that means is all of us are in this together, and there's definitely going to be an impact, right, on 2 or 3 fronts. The last 5 to 10 minutes of the conversation that we've had on attribution is going to be very, very different a few months from now, because there is going to be no easy way to attribute. There is going to be no easy way in which the ecosystem understands it's the same user who's seen the ad, come back later to provide this result. There'll be some probabilistic mechanisms to do it, which means that brands have to start focusing on a few things. Either, as Samriddh touched upon, to figure out how you start getting the first-party data through your own interactions with the user, or start working with third-party data partners, which could end up helping you build identifiers that are consistent across the ecosystem, right? LiveRamp, Trade Desk ID, ZeoTap, Epsilon, many of them. I think the other element, which is not as noticed by everyone, is that every marketing platform that relies on these identifiers to understand their audience and build these profiles for marketers will now be at a loss. We will no longer be able to predict as confidently as it was before. And so there will be a learning cycle through which all of the platforms go through an evolution. Now comes the bad news, which is important to everyone as a result of both these points. Put simply, it just means that the cost is going to go up for every marketer from an acquisition perspective till the ecosystem learns on this. The fact that we are all in this together will mean that marketers will have to work with every platform, like even the giants like a Google and a Facebook, to figure out how to actually get this right in a new world that looks very different from where we are today. Even these platforms themselves, even the biggest wall gardens themselves, have come up with ways in which their mechanisms are now no longer going to be the same as before. I think what we will see is that in the next 6 months or so, we will all learn, we will all grow together, and we'll continue to find new ways in which we can keep this ecosystem thriving.
Right, it's going to be difficult, and I can only imagine every single day, speaking to multiple clients and suggesting what should they be doing or should not be doing, or just take one day at a time. So it's an interesting time ahead. I think we are short on time, and I have multiple such questions, but I'm going to still ask 2 questions which possibly will help us close the loop. The first question is to Abhishek, which is around creatives, right? I mean, yeah, there is a broad consensus that creatives do play an important role in delivering better outcomes, right? What's your take on DCO, dynamic content optimization, the thing that we use to deliver creatives in a more personalized manner at a scale, right? For every user, the communication is different basis their likings and dislikings and so on. So that's the question to Abhishek. And at the same time, I'm gonna move on to the last question, which is to Navin. Is we can't end the discussion without having mention of use of AI and ML, right? So to Navin, what are some of the areas where automation or AI and ML can play a greater role in delivering better performance? Now that we're talking about, some of the tracking mechanisms going away and so on and so forth, we probably need to have some of these things in place. So any thoughts on that? I'll start with Abhishek.
Yep. So I think in today's world, I think you rightly said, personalization is one of the things that is everywhere around where the consumers are. Social media, recommendation, OTT, maybe browsing products on Amazon, Big Basket. So ads they see, everything is personalized. But when you generalize your communication and you target up with a generic ad, there's a high chances the ad recall will be very, very low. So now in today's world, the role of digital marketer has more evolved from a technical side, setting up the bids, budget, account structure, etc. More towards getting the right insights from the campaign and marrying those cohorts from these insights to the right communication, specific communication. So if a customer has dropped from a maybe after adding to a cart, maybe at a checkout stage, or maybe customer is browsing 3 products, maybe from different 2 categories, what type of communication you want to target for? So one should make sure that you are seeing the data and then making the communications accordingly. And and when we come to a dynamic creative optimization, first and foremost stage, at least for a startups or a brands, it is most important that your data sanity is maintained. You're capturing our data in a right way, right format, and initial work on the segmentation and targeting and testing on these cohorts. So I still remember when I joined Mamaearth around 3 years back, 6 months was we were testing these cohorts, whether A communication is working for me, whether B communication, whether ingredient communication is working or a payoff communication. क्या work करता है मेरे लिए, मैं पहले वो identify करूँ. And then afterwards, after those 6 months, we shifted to work on scale when we started using the more sophisticated technique using data. Dynamic creative optimization is one of the most powerful way, especially optimizing things at the top and the middle of the funnel. But I think I only suggest to the marketers who have done the championship in terms of identifying their cohorts in a right way, as well as tested their communication in the right way. Communication is important, but the making the right context to the right consumer is more important than that. You can't generally optimize the communication or target a communication with a generic way. And one more thing, I think for the video communication, you mentioned about the skippable ads. So at Mamaearth, if a consumer is skipping ads, we don't blame on media. We blame that we are not telling the story in a right way. We need to work on ads. So that's how the whole communication part is built, and that's how the whole important the communication is in building a brand and building a brand to a next level.
I think Paras, just adding on to what Abhishek said out there, he said a very important point about cohorts. Like, for example, somebody dropping off from the vitamin C serum page, you want to educate him about vitamin C serum, and whether it's on the add to cart phase or previous. I think that's where the dynamic creative optimization actually plays. I think it's very critical to use the word dynamic. And तो आजकल हम लोग ना DCO बहुत fancy हो गया हम लोग को use करने के लिए. We should even look our use cases. One is the cohort ways. Second, I think Hotstar or election results. I think they are like, I can just think Hotstar का अगर मेरे को कोई दिखता है creative which says Dhoni is on, for example, Dhoni is on strike and 30 balls में 60 चाहिए. I'll just look at that and start Hotstar. After election results आ रहा है, something talking about some candidate going up and down, मेरा local candidate के बारे में कुछ आ रहा है, which can be powered, if that can be powered, I've not checked. But I think those dynamic creatives are something that really evokes interest apart from the cohort base. So I think it's a question to us marketers, how important it is for us to use that.
With everyone's permission, can we have 2 more minutes where Navin can just wrap up with the last question and then we can go back to our work? Do we have everyone's consent here? Great. Navin, over to you. What are some of the areas where automation and AI/ML can play a greater role in delivering better performance?
Yeah, I mean, hearing all the marketers speak so much about how the ecosystem has changed and what the challenges are. I think Abhishek just touched upon the fact that the data is really humongous and it's very important as a brand to make sure that the quality and sanctity of it is really maintained, right? So I think what data science, what this very hybrid term that everyone in marketing calls out and engineering will definitely hate us for putting all of it into one bucket to say that data science, ML, AI altogether, what it really does is it just helps you make decisions better and faster in a world where data is just too large and complex to handle by humans. Take out the intuition, take out the judgment, make it purely metric driven, and that it is really more efficient, so that you're really getting the outcomes that you want and making marketing more effective. So I would bucket it in 2 or 3 elements across all the things that have already been touched upon in the panel, right? One is experimentation. We just heard about a Hotstar campaign that runs different creatives to different individuals. It's more real time. So how do you really enable experimentation happening at scale? It's not possible for a marketing team to sit and think of what kind of iterations need to run and how it has to happen. All the marketing team needs to think about is how do we set a template to make sure that experiments can run, and leave it over to the machines to actually do this better and then actually come back and enable results in a more efficient fashion. The second element of it is from a prediction perspective. Instead of you looking at Excel sheets and estimating and hopefully guessing that some channel or some creative is doing better, machine learning can actually help you understand what has actually happened in the past and what's going to likely happen in the future, and hence which channels should you be using, which audiences should be targeting, what's the cost that you should be looking at optimizing, and hence what should you do in a different fashion. Lastly, I think is a personalization element that I think has been touched upon continuously throughout the panel. How do you marry all the signals that you have? How do you marry all the touch points that you have to make sure that you're actually personalizing communication right from a push notification to a creative to a welcome message on the app? All of it really needs to be done in an automated fashion without you having to intervene in any process, right? So I think put simply, I think machines will take over the world, but not in a fearful way that we all are afraid of, but in a way in which marketing will become far more effective with that.
Thanks, Navin. I couldn't agree more. I think as a child, when we used to watch some of those sci-fi movies, we used to get like, oh wow, there's one Arnold who's going to come and save us, but we're still far away from that. So the important point that you've driven is right. Don't get bogged down by so many data sets that are coming in, and how do you solve, and don't get into the analysis paralysis mode, right? Just have a clear understanding on what's the objective that you want to achieve, and thereby use automation followed by machine learning, and followed by maybe as third step AI, and then try and achieve that. So some important takeaways for all of us, but the bottom line is be consumer focused. Technologies, whether it's MarTech in terms of cookies, no cookies, personalized information like email ID, phone number, will be there, will not be there, basis certain rules and regulations that may come in depending on which country, which place you are in. What's most important is what works for your consumer, right? I think Prathamesh somewhere mentioned about focusing on consumer metrics. That's the most important part. Formats and everything else will come, go. You'll probably have more weightage or less weightage and so on and so forth. But consumers are and has always been the king. Focusing on that, just design your MarTech, your data science practices, and you'll have a home run there. Thank you everyone for being with us. Thank you, Arun. Thank you, Prathamesh, Abhishek, Navin. Samriddh dropped off, but thanks all of you for taking our time and having this conversation with us. I hope you have a great evening. We hope to catch up soon. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for sharing your point of view. Dear viewers, we have an expo area where partner booths are set up. Explore the booths for useful videos and presentations. I'm sure there will be a lot to download from there. Stay tuned and enjoy the summit.